Good morning and welcome everyone to one of our community conversations for PolitiFest. I'm super happy you could. This is going to be about Proposition 15, arguably one of the most important measures on the statewide ballot this year. And it will affect how commercial properties are taxed, and it could have a major impact on education funding in the state. I'll let everybody else explain it to you, but my name's Will Huntsberry. I'm the education reporter for Voice of San Diego. And if you don't know what we are, we're an investigative news outlet that's been around in San Diego for 15 years. And our whole mission is to hold public officials accountable by uncovering information they sometimes don't want us to uncover, and also by helping the public understand ballot measures like Proposition 15, which we're going to talk about today. We want you guys to be engaged and able to understand all these sometimes extremely complicated and occasionally boring things. So quick housekeeping, just let me thank our sponsors really quick. Without them, we could not put on an event like this. So thank you to the Google News Initiative for helping create this as a virtual event. Thanks to the College of Arts and Sciences at USD for underwriting all student tickets, and to the San Diego Foundation for supporting our community conversations like this one. Also thanks to Cox Communications, SDG&E, the Atlantis Group, the City of San Diego Retired Employees Association, City Heights Community Development Corporation, the San Diego Party, and Business. Without those folks are clearly engaged members of the community themselves, and we should applaud them for that. If you're watching, please comment, and we will try to get your questions to the moderators. Today's the last day of the event, so get in as many comment on social media as 2020. And yeah, I think that's pretty much all I have to say. Now I'm going to pass it over to Iran.
I'm actually going to defer to Jordan here. He's going to do the kick us off first. Go ahead, Jordan.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you.
In this session today.
All right, good morning, everybody, and thank you, Voice of San Diego. I want to thank Julianne Markow, Will Huntsberry, Megan Wood for helping make this happen, and Alliance San Diego for this opportunity to join together and discuss ideas, provide facts, and join in answering questions so voters can make an informed decision. We both have differing views on Proposition 15, but together we are joining for a great community conversation, only available at PolitiFest. My name is Jordan Marks, and I'm your taxpayer advocate for the San Diego County Assessor, Ernie Dronenberg, and with me moderating is my partner today, Hiram Soto, Communications Director for Alliance San Diego. We will intro our panelists, hear a presentation from each side, then have panelists ask questions of each other, and then Hiram and I are actually going to select questions from the chat box. So hit that chat box, ask those questions as we go along, and we're going to get to as many as we can, and then we're going to have a 5-minute closing from each side. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it back over to my partner, Hiram Soto, to introduce his panel.
Hi, good morning, everyone, and thank you very much, Voice of San Diego and the folks at PolitiFest for putting note of this together. We much appreciate it, and welcome to this community conversation, Prop 15, what you should know. And since we are talking about what you should know about Prop 15, let me say this before I introduce our panelists. A record 1.7 million everyday Californians, we're talking about parents, teachers, small business owners, people from all walks of life, have helped put this measure on the ballot. And they did this because they understand that no matter who we are, no matter where we come from, whether we're black or whether we're white or whether we're brown, we all want what's best for our schools and communities. I want everybody to know that the folks opposing this historic ballot measure include a handful of large multinational corporations and exclusive country clubs that want to protect their tax loopholes at all costs. They are doing this with the help of public figures and elite politicians who rather support big corporations and the recreational activities of the very wealthy, instead of standing with teachers, firefighters, and nurses. And so today we are here representing our schools and our communities. And with that, it is my pleasure to introduce Andrea Guerrero. Andrea Guerrero is the Executive Director of Alliance San Diego, a community empowerment organization working to build a more inclusive and just democracy. Before joining Alliance San Diego, Andrea Guerrero was the Field and Policy Director at the ACLU of San Diego and Imperial Counties. And prior to that, she practiced immigration law before administrative, federal district, and appellate courts. She has a law degree from UC Berkeley Law School, a policy master's degree from the University of Texas, and a bachelor's degree from Stanford University. Welcome, Andrea.
Welcome, it's wonderful to be here.
And now I want to introduce Keisha Borden. Keisha Borden is a longtime resident of Southeast San Diego and a graduate of O'Farrell SCPA. Keisha attended UC Berkeley and returned to her community to serve as an elementary educator in the San Diego Unified School District for over 20 years. Keisha currently serves as the president of the San Diego Education Association, representing 6,500 educators in the San Diego Unified School District. SDEA works to build local coalitions and community partnerships to further public education and ensure adequate funding for schools in San Diego. These partnerships include Alliance San Diego and the Center for Policy Initiatives. Welcome, Keisha. And finally, I want to introduce Amy Blum. Amy Blum is the president of Eagle Marketing Services. It is a full service agency focusing on nonprofits and healthcare organizations. Amy has run her home businesses since 2008. Prior to creating Eagle Marketing, Amy was the community affairs director at KGTV Channel 10. She has also worked for United Way of San Diego County and CNN Headline News in Atlanta, Georgia. Amy is a passionate community volunteer who frequently engages in service projects with her family that includes 3 teenagers. Welcome, Amy.
Thank you.
Welcome all the panelists. And with that, I'm going to pass it to Jordan to introduce the other panelists.
All right, and we were very lucky to have 2 experts and a small business owner join us today, and that's kind of how we looked at our panelist division. So,
You are muted, Jordan.
Thank you, Haram, I appreciate that. Good partner already. So we decided to have 2 experts and a small business, as Haram just laid out, and so for our small business owner that we have with us today, it's Jason Pagiao. He's a small business owner, a nonprofit CEO, and a director with the Cal Asian Chamber. Jason's president and CEO of the Asian Business Association of San Diego. ABA San Diego represents Asian business owners' interests in the county of San Diego. He's also one of the co-founders of the Strategic Alliance, a partnership between the San Diego County's 3 largest ethnic chambers of commerce to represent their interests of tens of thousands of minority-owned and local San Diego businesses. Jason's been a small business owner for over a decade in manufacturing, assembly company, consulting, and co-founded multiple local nonprofits. His current civic commitments include the board of directors at the NTC Foundation, that's the Arts District at Liberty Station, board of directors of the Asian Pacific American Coalition, and lastly, Jason serves as a member of the United States Coast Guard. Interestingly enough, one of our other panelists was also a Coastie. Speaking as a technical expert from the San Diego County Assessor's Office is Chief Deputy Assessor Jeff Olson. Jeff Olson serves as the San Diego County Chief Deputy Assessor and has for over 31 years. He has over 31 years experience in property tax assessment, including 16 years in real property appraisal. Jeff is responsible for the overall operations of the Assessor Office and the production of the county's $605 billion assessment roll. Jeff has served on numerous statewide committees enhancing property tax administration and is a trainer on the property tax rules in the California State Board of Equalization. Jeff holds a bachelor's degree in finance and an advanced appraisal certificate from the California State Board of Equalization, and he's a longtime resident of our own East County. Lastly, and not least, it is my pleasure to introduce my boss, our Honorable Ernest J. Johrenberg, or as we like to call him, Ernie. As the state legislators across California refer to him, the tax legend. Ernie was elected as San Diego County Assessor Recorder Clerk in November 2010. By the way, he's had a 40-year career, so just bear with me for a minute and it's gonna play into what we have today. He's also President-elect of the California Assessors Association. He has served as chairman of the California State Board of Equalization and Franchise Tax Board, where he wrote the rules implementing Prop 13 in 1979 and drafted the California Taxpayer Bill of Rights. Ernie has been a California certified property tax appraiser for over 20 years, partner in the largest audit and tax consulting firm in the world, and a nationally recognized tax expert, small business owner, and a flower farmer. Ernie's been involved in all levels of tax administration for over 28 years and is a graduate of SDSU. He started his career as an auditor, a tax auditor for the California Board of Equalization. He also oversaw the Property Tax Committee for 20 years, and his board duties include being a local property tax assessor, assessing complex property located in all 58 counties across the state of California. Ernie personally wrote the Proposition 13 assessment rules, major changes, and has heard over 20,000 tax appeals. Ernie has held every position of president of board on almost every major state tax association in the United States, including in 1997, being appointed by the Speaker of the United States House of Representatives to be a commissioner on the IRS Restructuring Commission, president of the Federation of Tax Administration and the Western States Association of Tax Administrators. In 1998, he was termed out of office and he joined Deloitte & Touche as a national tax partner. After aging out there in an effort to serve his local community in 1999, he agreed to be appointed to the San Diego County Board of Education. His fellow members elected him president, and he was elected for a 4-year term again in 2002 before departing in 2005. Today, Ernie oversees over 400 staff members and an annual budget here at the county of $81 million. He oversees the tax assessment division with about 300 members strong and is responsible for locating, identifying, and determining tax assessment values in the county of San Diego. Ernie and the assessor team have a 95% positive customer service rating from third-party rating Good Snitch and a 4.5 stars Yelp rating. Today, Ernie resides in Fallbrook as a flower farmer on a working 33-acre flower farm with his wife and small business partner, Marilyn. Okay, so now that we know who our panelists are, I'm going to turn it back over to Hiram, and we're going to start with the presentation from the proponents of the initiative of Proposition 15.
Thank you, Jordan, for that. I'm going to pass it over to my boss, Andrea Guerrero from Alliance San Diego. She's going to kick us off with a presentation about Prop 15 and the impact it will have here in San Diego. Andrea, please take it away.
Wonderful. Good morning, everyone. I'm going to pull up the presentation.
And while you do that, Andrea, let me just add that if folks have questions, you need to add it to the Q&A, not the chat. The Q&A is where we'll be able to see the questions that you have.
Yes, and we're already starting to get some good questions, Hiram. So please, we saw questions on the Farm Bureau. Was that an ad for Ernie Dronenberg? No, it was not. Will all the funds go to the schools? Good questions. Let's bring those in, and we'll try to get to as many of them as we can.
Wonderful. All right. So I've pulled up my screen for the presentation. Can everyone see it? Those of you who can speak? Okay.
Yes.
Looks good.
I'm going to share this presentation with my co-panelists, and I'll kick us off. So what is Schools and Communities First? That is the ballot measure that will be on the November ballot called Prop 15. Prop 15 is good for all San Diegans. It is fair and balanced reform that generates $12 billion a year to improve our schools and communities. It makes sure corporations and country clubs pay their fair share of property taxes while protecting small businesses, homeowners, renters, and farmers. Prop 15 closes a loophole that large commercial and industrial property owners have used to avoid paying their fair share of taxes since 1978. Corporations use the loophole to freeze their tax base and pay taxes on the sale value, not the market value of their property. Property taxes are what pay for local schools, community colleges, and essential government services. And when corporations don't pay, our children and families suffer. Because of the loophole, corporations in California pay less and families pay more. And if we look at the California tax share of who pays what, and we look at the residential share versus commercial and industrial share, we can see that since 1978, families in residential properties have gone from paying roughly half to paying nearly 3/4 of property taxes in California, while corporations who own commercial and industrial properties have gone from paying nearly half to 1/4. That is also true in San Diego County as well. Currently, we pay, residential families pay roughly roughly 3/4 of the property tax in San Diego County. So Prop 15 would generate $12 billion a year to invest in our families and our future. Again, it requires corporations with total property valued over $3 million to pay taxes on that value rather than the original sale price. According to USC, the University of Southern California, only 10% of commercial and industrial properties are valued over $3 million in California. These are the ones that would pay, this handful. Prop 15 generates $12 billion a year. 40% of that, as written in the measure, would go to schools and community colleges, and 60% would go to local services that we all rely on to keep us safe, healthy, and whole. I'll turn it over to Keisha.
Thank you, Andrea. So Prop 15 would bring an additional $700 million to San Diego. Every school, including charter schools, every community college, every city, every fire district, water district, healthcare district will gain much needed revenue. I know folks are concerned about how the money will get to us. None of the money will stay in San Diego or Sacramento. It will come directly to San Diego. The proposition itself states that it will distribute the new revenue resulting from this measure to schools and local communities and not to the state. So over the course of my career, I've spent thousands of dollars to create a safe and welcoming space for my students and to provide supplies and materials to supplement the curriculum, to make it more interesting and accessible to my students. And our families have participated in fundraisers and book fairs and jog-a-thons and bake sales to fund what should be basics like art and music and playground equipment. Prop 15 will bring K-12 schools much needed support, additional teachers, which will reduce class sizes, classroom aids, computers, science equipment, all the things you see listed there. And I'm sure every business owner will tell you how important a well-educated, well-trained workforce is to the success of their businesses. Prop 15 will support community colleges and students by providing academic counseling and tutoring and childcare for our students. Community colleges train more than 3/4 of our nurses, our firefighters, and EMTs. And half of the UC students who earn a STEM degree transferred in from a community college. So Prop 15 will allow our community colleges to provide more resources to our young people after graduating from high school. Prop 15 will allow more young people to make a successful transition into the workforce. A well-trained and well-educated people can only make our communities better. Thank you. So lifting up our schools is important, but when our students leave school at the end of the day, they deserve libraries that are open in the evenings and on weekends. Our students deserve fun and inviting parks and rec centers where they can spend their time after school. Some of our children need youth programs that can change the trajectory of their young lives and put them back on the right track. Prop 15 will provide for city and county services that support our communities. We've seen recently the fires that have been ravaging our state. Fire districts will receive additional funding from Prop 15. Our water districts will ensure that our drinking water remains safe and accessible. Public hospitals, infrastructure, all those services will be funded by Prop 15. So Prop 15 really will promote equality. Prop 15 is a historic, systemic, equitable, and long-term solution to usher in a new era of investment into what matters most, I think for everyone, our children, our families, and our future. This loophole that Andrea spoke about earlier, the loophole it would close has been devastating. Specifically to education, our per pupil spending has fallen from 7th in the nation to 39th in the nation. We are near the bottom in spending for our students. The ratio of students to teachers is last. The ratio of students to nurses and librarians is last. That to me is unacceptable in a state as rich as California. And Prop 15 is an act of courage to vote for Prop 15. We cannot say we are committed to racial, economic, and social justice and yet ignore the harm that has been caused by chronic disinvestment, especially to our communities of color. So we all want what's best for our children and our communities, and isn't it time we made our schools and communities a priority? Now is the time for everyone to pay their fair share. Prop 15 will set us on a path toward that reality. And now we will pass it on to Amy.
Thanks, Keisha. Well, I'm here today not only as a small business owner, but a parent of 3 children who attend Title I public schools. So I'm supporting Prop 15, both as a parent and a business owner. So Prop 15 invests in livable communities that are good for businesses with good schools, colleges, and services. It cuts small business taxes by eliminating the business personal property tax for 90% of businesses. It levels the playing field by requiring big businesses to pay their fair share based on market property values. And it exempts small businesses with properties valued at $3 million or less and exempts all home-based businesses. Prop 15 builds an inclusive community where everyone has an opportunity and shares in prosperity, where everyone lives in dignity and can support themselves and their families, and everyone contributes their fair share to create healthy communities where all of us can thrive. So Prop 15 really impacts the biggest of businesses. Most of the new revenues would come from the top 10% of commercial and industrial properties. This includes Disney, which pays taxes on 1978 land values while we pay 2020 ticket prices. It includes the San Diego Country Club and other exclusive clubs, which are some of the largest landowners, yet pay the lowest property taxes, 2 cents per square foot, while homeowners literally across the street pay 50 times as much. So most mom and pop businesses will not be affected by Prop 15. Most sit on land worth far less than $3 million. This includes the Convoy, North Park, Little Italy, and Barrio Logan business districts. Looking at just the 3rd Avenue businesses in Chula Vista, of the 250 businesses, only 5% are on properties valued over $3 million, and most were recently sold and paid their fair share. Big landlords that threaten to pass on taxes will face the reality that the market sets the rates, not property taxes.
Thank you, Amy. In closing, Prop 15 is essential to our recovery. We need it now and we need it for the future. In reality, we've needed it for a long time. Prop 15 will help us recover and it will create sustained revenue for schools and communities for generations to come. That's why we are encouraging everyone to vote yes on Prop 15. I'll turn it back to you, Idam.
Just trying to unmute myself. Got it. Thank you for that presentation, team. With that, I want to pass it to Jordan. Jordan.
All right, we're going to now load up presentation. It's a lot of information and a lot of fact-based information, especially pertaining here to San Diego County. So if you have questions about the information presented, please hit the chat box questions. We want those questions. A lot of ideas are going to go back and forth here, and we're going to try to stick to the facts. And what a lot of the information that you're going to see here comes from our current assessor records here in San Diego County. So without further ado, I'm going to actually welcome Ernie Dronenberg, and he's going to start the presentation. And he might be on mute, so I'm just.
I got it. I couldn't unmute it. Oh, and thanks for a good presentation by the Andrea and the folks from there. We do have some disputed numbers, but our numbers are available and they're auditable. We can't find the sources that their numbers, and we don't know if they're peer-reviewed studies or just somebody's paper or what, but we can't find the USC study nor the University of California studies. But good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to lay out what led me to oppose Prop 15 and why I think the voters should be against the elimination of the Prop 13 protections for property owners. As a San Diego County assessor, I view my role as a technical administrator of property tax assessments. As the president-elect of the California Assessors Association, I am a voice for property tax administration statewide. The details of the initiative, if implemented, will cause irreparable harm to the public, San Diego small business, and our community. That's what has led me to speak here today, and I appreciate the time that you're giving us, and I will recognize again, as Jordan did, all the sponsors for this. How does a Prop 13 work? Prop 13 was passed in 1978, and actually that was the same day of my first election as a member of the State Board of Equalization, which writes the property tax rule among other functions. So I was responsible as chairman of the Property Tax Committee to write the Prop 13 rules in 1978. Prop 13 was passed to protect property owners from an adequate market value system. We're taking a step backwards with Prop 15. That is, the same system will cause homeowners and businesses to lose their properties from unaffordable, unpredictable property taxes. Every year you'll be at the mailbox, opening it up. Hopefully you'll have some oxygen next to you because you're going to have a heart attack with see what happened to your house in the market value system. Prop 13 put an end to that need for the oxygen at the mailbox. Prop 13 is an agreement between the taxpayer and government. And it says, I can afford this. I just bought this house and I'll pay 1%. And that's my guarantee. I just started this business. I can afford 1% property tax for my business. That guarantee plus the knowledge that the increase each year to help government fund itself is a maximum of 2% by government. But of course, all the other changes that go through have increased it, and you'll see from a year to year. The first point I want to make is that Prop 13 is working, and it is working well right now. It delivers tax limitation protection for taxpayers, making property ownership affordable. The proponents have said that this is going to hurt housing. Actually, this thing will kill new housing if it goes into effect. We're going one giant step backwards. But the proponents have also said this is the first step and we're going to go after housing next. Second, it provides a stable, increasing revenue source for government and schools. In 2020, during the COVID, it delivered a tax roll of $604 billion. That's our largest tax roll ever. And that was a 5.18% increase. For the past 6 years, every year we've delivered more than 5% increase in tax revenue. While COVID-19 busted the state's budget with an estimated $54 billion due to the major decline in sales tax and incomes, thanks to Prop 13, we have a steady and increasing predictable source. This will eliminate that steady and predictable source. This will add to the problem of increased taxes one year, decreased taxes another, and not be able to produce a budget that with any confidence. Next, the Prop 13 average property tax rate in California before when Prop 13 passed was 2.6%. Our tax roll since '78 has generally stayed with the same amount. And the numbers you're using are completely, I don't know where they came from. That's why I'd love to see the study, because our numbers show that in 1978, there were 75% of the roll was produced by residents. And today it's also 78. So that number hasn't changed whatsoever. In 2019, San Diego homeowners had an average of $590,000 in a housing price. Under Prop 13, that housing price would be $5,000. The tax on that house would be $5,900. At the Prop 13 rate, prior to Prop 13, it would be 2.6% or $15,300. That big difference of $10,000 is the affordable element that is that Prop 13 brought. I'm going to turn it now quickly to Jeff.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me okay? Yes? My name is Jeff Olson, and I'm the Chief Deputy Assessor. This slide provides a visual of the reliability of Prop 13 versus the uncertainty of Prop 15. The black line on this graph is an example of a property's Prop 13 values. The green line represents the assessed value under Prop 15. The issue is that Prop 15 is a guessing game. You, the taxpayer or a business owner, would not know how much your tax bill was going to be until it showed up at your mailbox. Also, schools will have no idea how much revenue they'll receive from year to year. How can either party budget with this uncertainty? This was one of the problems that was fixed in 1978 when Prop 13 passed. The passage of Prop 15 would be going backwards and causing more uncertainty for both the business and the taxpayer. Just a moment, folks. We're having some technical difficulties. We'll be right back with you.
Okay. All right, I think I got it. Sorry about that. Before the initiative was read to you, you might have wondered, tell me where you get to the line that says there's a tax increase. There is no line on tax increase. This is the largest property tax increase in California's history. Page. So the summary of the Proposition 15 is that it will have funding of between 5.6 billion and 11.5 billion, and that would be allocated for schools. This is really, if my staff brought me something that says they can't give me a number within 100% error factor, they wouldn't be working here. There is no lockbox to increase revenue, ensure that the money is spent to improve students. As a former president of the San Diego County Board of Education, I can tell you, if this money dropped out like it's saying they're going to be $6 billion, the first thing that we spend on is the unfunded pension liabilities. That is the thing that's keeping the schools in deep trouble. And that's because of their increased pensions without the proper funding levels before it. So if anything, this money will be used first, I believe, to fund the unfunded pension liabilities. Jeff.
A few more specifics about what Proposition 15 does. Proposition 15 will reassess to market value commercial and industrial properties. These properties will need to be reassessed every year versus just upon a change of ownership or new construction, as it is in Proposition 13. Proposition 15 does exempt residential, does exempt from reassessment residential properties as well as agricultural land. We're going to be talking about ag in a little bit. Prop 15 also exempts from reassessment aggregate property values less than $3 million. Now let me explain what aggregate is. If you own more than one property, we will total the market value of all of your properties, and if you exceed 3 million, all of those properties will be reassessed under Prop 15. Prop 15 also exempts some business personal property, providing a tax savings capped at $5,000 per year.
Okay, slide. Okay. For the past 2 years, California Assessors Association has been working with the proponents of Prop 15, the past 2 years. In the end, they ignored our guidance from a bipartisan elected assessors membership. They only listened to our guidance when we showed them that their poorly drafted initiative would garner far much revenue because of the tax technology was incorrectly used. They then rewrote the initiative hastily and ignored our guidance again. They had to collect millions of signatures. Incidentally, they paid for all those signatures. There were but a few people out on the streets. And that's why the budget was several $1 million to collect the signatures. They collected millions of signatures again and requalified the initiative basically for the third time because they dropped another one. In the over 100-year history of the California Assessors Association, we have never taken a position on a ballot initiative. Today, assessors across California have come together, unite to oppose Proposition. Why would we oppose a property tax income? Because this is a nightmare. It's nearly impossible for us to implement. Prop 15 gave us an initiative that 1 year to hire 1,000 new appraisers, which we're going to need statewide. And right now there's a 130 vacancies because they're so hard to find. And yet we're going to have to go get 1,000 new ones in 1 year. In 1 year, train that staff. And it usually takes 3 to 5 years to train a staff to handle commercial industrial appraisals. Now we must conduct the appraisals across the state to determine property ownership. This initiative does not tax property located in San Diego County exclusively. It taxes property, and it has to be determined whether or not we can aggregate other properties from other counties to determine whether or not this property is a small business or not. Lastly, small businesses must go to court if they disagree with the exemption. Right now we have an appeals board, but the initiative eliminates the appeals board for this exemption qualification. We estimate that we will go from 4,000 appeals to 30,000 appeals. And this is the slide that starts with the There are 6 false premises made by the proponents in our presentation. The first one, and the one that's most egregious, is that there is a loophole. They are wrong. Commercial industrial properties do not pay their fair share. They are wrong when they say that. They do. Despite their claims, the tax rolls from 79 to today, the average residential parcel increased by 10%. As you can see, that's the blue on the chart. At that same period of time, the average commercial parcel taxable value increased by 20 times. You can see it in this slide using factual numbers, not mythical numbers, not somebody's study that they can't produce. The average is, let me be clear, there is no tax loophole here. In spite of what
Ernie, we're getting the 2-minute warning here, so we're just going to move on to the next slide if it's okay.
Go.
Okay, false premise number 2 for Prop 15 won't impact small business. The Prop 15 proponents state that small business will be protected. As you'll see in the next several slides, this is simply a false giveaway. Regarding that $3 million aggregated value, the current average assessed value of commercial property in San Diego County is $3.1 million, and that's before we reassess up to market value. Next slide, please. If property exceeds $3 million but is occupied at least 50% by small business, it can be exempted from reassessment. In order to qualify as a small business, however, you have to have 50 or less employees, you have to be independently owned and operated, and the real problem here is you have to own real property in the state of California. Most small businesses do not own their property, they rent. As such, there is no small business exemption. Most tenants actually have what's called a triple net lease, which requires them to pay property tax. When property tax increases, that will be passed on to the tenant. It will be the tenant, not the landlord, that will receive the higher tax bill. And oh, by the way, that small business exemption goes away in 2025. It's a lost leader. It expires in 3 years. Next slide. The next slide is, I wanted to give you an example of what these large investors and corporations look like in San Diego County. Let's look at a few of those large corporations as defined by Prop 15. Everyone knows Felipe's Pizza Grotto, a staple in San Diego since 1950. With multiple locations, Felipe's will exceed the $3 million aggregate value and therefore be reassessed. This particular Felipe's and legal entities are in Little Italy would see an increase of approximately $22,000 per year on its property tax. That's a lot of spaghetti. The next slide, still false premise number 3, it'll only impact property owners, not renters. We talked about those triple net leases. This is a rental center, a retail center in San Marcos that could see its annual taxes increase by $44,000. That's going to be passed down to the cake supply store, the vacuum repair, and the hair salon, organizations, businesses that are already reeling from COVID-19 restrictions. We don't have to look very far to find examples of other properties where small businesses will be adversely affected. We have a multi-tenant retail building in Hillcrest and the well-known DeMille's restaurant on Adams Avenue. Both of these large corporations, as defined by Prop 15, will be hit substantially in higher property taxes. These businesses are fighting for their survival today. How can we expect them to survive the double whammy of COVID-19 and Prop 15?
My apologies, I need to interrupt just because we had agreed to a certain time for these presentations and you guys are 4 minutes over. So just in the name of fairness for us to continue with the program.
Yeah, Rob, can we get 1 more minute and we'll end our closing a lot sooner. I just think some of these are going to answer some of the questions that are coming up. And it might facilitate the conversation.
By a lot sooner, you mean 1 minute?
Yeah, so we're just going to do 1 minute for our small business and 1 more minute for Jeff, and we're just closing up there.
Go for it.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Why don't we switch to slide 17, Jordan? I want to hit on these agricultural properties. The Prop 15 was written very badly, as Ernie had said previously. Prop 15 says it won't affect agricultural properties. The problem is assessors are required to assess land and structures separately, and Prop 15 makes it specific that it only exempts agricultural land. So all of those structures that make agricultural properties viable, such as barns, dairies, processing plants, wineries, fruit and nut trees, and grapevines, all subject to reassessment under Prop 15.
And we're going to bring our small business on right now, Jeff, if that's all right. Jason, would you mind joining us? And we're going to just limit you to a minute here in your closing, sir.
It's going way over right now, Jordan. Come on.
Yeah, we'll cut down our ending. We're going to take a 1 minute closing and we'll rebalance
It's
there.
going down in 30 seconds.
Okay.
Jason,
please.
Wrap it up, please. Thank you.
Very quickly here, false premise by number 6. Number 6 by the proponents is Prop 15 won't impact minority and women-owned businesses. Prop 15 is opposed by social justice and civil rights organizations, including the NAACP and the state's largest ethnic chambers of commerce, the California Asian Pacific Chamber of Commerce, which I'm representing here today, the California Black Chamber of Commerce, and the California Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. The study in particular from the NAACP noted that increasing property taxes on small businesses by $11.5 billion a year will hurt women and minority-owned businesses the most. Prop 15 will also increase gentrification in those vulnerable communities, and Prop 15 will increase the cost of living for everyone and makes the homeless crisis even worse. They noted Prop 15's tax increase will be passed on to small businesses and consumers throughout the state and everything they buy, and found it deeply troubling. Jordan, do you want to go on to any other items?
Yeah, I'm just going to turn it over to your own personal office because I think, we had a home-based business and they want to hear why you're here as a small business owner.
Well, sure. So
we're out of time, Jordan. Come on, let's be fair.
I'm just going to let him talk about his business because it's going to come up so people can understand. So I'll just close up here. Haram, is it okay to help him out? Their building was bought in 2002, and they're a renter.
We have 90 minutes to talk about this, and we need to move forward with the presentation.
Agreed.
We had agreed to a certain set of parameters, and me speaking right now is already eating up time. So
all right,
let's move on to the next phase, which is questions. How about that?
Okay, that sounds good.
Great, thank you.
All right, so now in this part, we agreed that each panelist is going to be able to ask each other a question. So why don't we, do you want us to start off first since you guys started with the first presentation, or how do you want to do that, Haram?
Well, I think...
you guys can lead off if you like.
Well, let me ask a question first, just because one of the things that the assessor mentioned is about implementation. And it's something that the office has repeatedly said, we can't do this. It's basically impossible to implement Prop 15 because you would need more assessors, to reassess commercial properties. Yet schools like where Keisha works, they can teach more students by hiring more teachers when they get the resources. Hospitals and health clinics can help more patients when they have the resources, when they have the funding. Firefighters can save more lives when they have the resources. Prop 15 gives you, the assessor's office, the resources to hire more people to get the job done. Millions of dollars more. Why do you keep saying that assessors can't implement Prop 15? Is it that you're unwilling to do that? Or is it that you're unable to do that? Or what's the deal with that?
So I'm just going to bring in, before I get to our panelists, their estimated cost from the slides is $1 billion to implement. And the assessors, I'll have Ernie address the assessor comment. Ernie, why did the Assessor Association say that they could not properly implement within 1 year?
Okay, it's not a matter of people, it's a matter of how it's written, and that's why we are soundly against it. It's written with things like saying we have to aggregate business throughout the whole state. That means I have to know the ownership of a business in Eureka County. It could have a piece of a property in San Diego County. Then I have to determine what the value was of that property in Eureka County. Several combinations of businesses have to be made to get to a value. And if I can't get the cooperation of the Eureka County assessor, and then I have to have one of my people go to Eureka County and make an assessment. It's not the people cost, it's the law. The law is impossible to do with any accuracy, because a lot of counties will just do an average number. I don't take average numbers. I want numbers that can be defended in court if need be. So we have to have the right numbers.
And Jeff's the hiring manager. Jeff, do you want to discuss the initiative implementation period and what the issue was there?
Yeah, just real briefly. Yes, Prop 15 does provide monies to assessors to hire additional staff to get this job done. As was previously testified to, currently statewide, there's 130 appraiser vacancies, and we're looking at having to hire an additional 900. It would be like asking the schools to hire teachers when there weren't any teachers available on the job market. Secondly, as far as what Ernie was saying on the administration aspects, he's absolutely right. I've worked at the assessor's office for 31 years. I'm responsible for their operations. And in reading this, there would have to be so much communication between 57 other counties in order to administer this program. While Ernie talked about the aggregate value, there's also this case of the exemption. For example, that $500,000 exemption, or $5,000 a year on business personal property that we discussed, that is total for the entity, for the business throughout the state. So who gets the exemption? Do we have to split it somehow, that maybe they'll get $1,000 off of their taxes in San Diego and $2,000 off in Los Angeles and $1,000 off in Riverside? How do you ever manage that? I certainly wish the proponents of this had paid attention to what assessors would say, because after all, that's our job, is to administer the law, and this law is just bad.
So Haram, I think what they're saying is that if this passes, will it get implemented? Yes, we do our job here at the office, but the 1-year implementation period that the assessors asked get pushed out, the cases that the assessors asked to make it more feasible and done properly, those weren't respected by the proponents. That's one of the reasons the Assessors Association opposed it. Okay, so turning to our side, Ernie, you have a question?
Jordan, your mic is going in and out. I can't hear you. The proponents of 15 have said that there are winners and losers, but there are more winners. So why would this pass? From what I can see, the government is the big winner. Small business as well as consumers are the big losers for the largest property tax increase in California. As a former chair of the San Diego County Board of Education, I know the largest budget needs, like I've mentioned, is unfunded liabilities. Do I want more money for education? Yes, but this is the wrong initiative at the wrong time. We're gonna be closing doors on small business throughout the county. Right now, there's 40% of the businesses in Chula Vista have said that they won't be reopening. You're going to put a tax increase on small businesses, and the initiative is poorly drafted, and it does put a tax increase on small businesses. When you bring those small businesses up to market, they're going to lose the $3 million qualification number.
And if I could add a question onto what Ernie just said.
Let's take
Hold on. We're doing one. Yeah, we're gonna do one question here. So Ernie, do you want to just restate your question again? Because I may have gotten lost just a little bit.
No, I think we got it.
Oh, okay.
How do you guarantee the big winners of the money that will go to kids and not go to pay off the huge unfunded pension liabilities we are today?
Thank you.
Right. Thank you for that. And then you also mentioned about small business, and we're happy to answer that. From our panelists, who's willing to take this one?
I will. So Prop 15 explicitly protects homeowners and small business owners, period. There's no ambiguity about this. As a small business-based economy in California, 50% of small businesses are home-based businesses like myself. The opposition actually lied on the ballot, and we had a judge strike that down. And I know this because I was a plaintiff in the case. So again, I will repeat, Prop 15 protects homeowners and small business owners. Plain and simple.
Maybe your panelists from the teachers.
Assessing, if you want to be hired as an assessor, you
Hold on,
have to
Ernie.
come and apply.
Maybe their panelists from the teachers representative can address the money going into the classroom and not to pensions. Appreciate it.
That's just simply not going to happen. I love how certain groups always want to look at teachers' pensions. This is not about teachers' pensions. You know what, this money is going to be used by schools through the LCFF, which ensures that our most vulnerable students are receiving this money. So these are our foster students, our homeless students, our English language learners. This money is not going to go to pensions. It's going to go where other property tax money goes, which is what is used to fund schools. And that money is going to be transparent. It's going to be held to the same accountability as other monies are used, and they are going to be used for our most vulnerable students. And you know, we really shouldn't be using these scare tactics. We shouldn't be afraid to fund schools and infrastructure that help us all get ahead. Our children are in schools without enough of anything. Enough teachers, enough counselors, enough nurses, enough equipment. Our families are struggling from crumbling infrastructure. And for you to bring up our pensions is just shameful.
Well, as shameful as the administrator of the San Diego County Board of Education, I know the facts. Just like in assessing and reading the initiative, I know the facts. Amy, I disagree with you. I can show you over and over again. If we had more time, we had more illustrations that showed you how small business taxes were going to double and triple.
Ernie, we have a question now coming in from Haram and their folks.
Sure. You know, specifically, I think I wanted to ask a question about country clubs for our team to ask that. Amy, you want to take that one?
Sure, thank you. So we did an analysis of the 5 biggest country clubs in San Diego, which are some of the biggest landowners in the county. And we found that they pay 2 to 3 cents on the dollar per square foot, while homeowners literally across the street pay 50 times as much. That's money that goes straight to local community schools, as well as community colleges that are helping to prepare the workforce of the future. So these country clubs include Crosby Club, Del Mar Country Club, San Diego Country Club, La Jolla Country Club, and the Farms Golf Club. They have all benefited from the corporate tax loophole that Prop 15 is trying to close. So my question, excuse me, my question is, how is it fair or even justifiable that the communities around them effectively subsidize the recreational activities of the most wealthy at the expense of funding our schools and communities first?
Hey, Ernie, do you want to discuss, or Jeff, do you want to discuss the country clubs?
Country clubs and all, these all were either on a purchase price or a production, how much it costs to build. And under the system that you're talking about, it would be annually reassessed. Since golf courses are selling at a loss right now, you would be losing revenue if you're on your system because they aren't increasing. Have you noticed how many are closing? Some of them are almost brand new, but yet they can't make it. And based on an annual reassessment basis, those will be even higher number of casualties of golf courses. Jeff?
Yeah, let me go ahead and add that discrepancy you're mentioning in the assessment of country clubs versus residents happens even between residents and residents. Proposition 13, when passed, was envisioned to protect all properties by giving them predictability going into the future. So if you bought your home, let's say, in 1978 versus, and I buy the house next door today, you better believe I'm going to be paying 100 times more in tax than you are because of that basis. But that's what Prop 13 did. It protects everyone. It protects homeowners. It protects country clubs. It protects the governments and the schools that rely on this income by providing a steady annual stream. And as we showed previously, just in the last 6 years, property tax assessments and property tax revenue have gone up 30% in just the last 6 years. So you can't say that oh, we're not getting enough money to do our jobs. Well, you're getting more money every year. And that's why Prop 13 is good. It protects taxpayers and it protects schools and government.
Right.
We just
You know,
want to
hold on.
and make sure businesses are paying their fair share.
Hold on, if it's okay. I know this discussion generally comes up in the reference to Disneyland, that they've owned their land for a long time, right? Is that, Amy, what you're kind of talking about? They've owned their land for a long time?
Well, I was talking about country clubs actually, but we can talk.
We can put it in reference of what people might be able to, you know, have visual identification of. I don't know if everybody's been to a country club, so, but
Okay.
Jeff, maybe you can explain why Disneyland's taxes have gone up.
You know, Disneyland hasn't changed ownership and that land hasn't been reassessed since pre-Prop 13. That said, just in the last 20 years, their assessed value and the property taxes they pay have increased from $23 million a year to $68 million a year. And the reason for that is, yes, Prop 13 is protecting the land value, but every time you build a roller coaster, every time you build a new land like Star Wars land, that gets reassessed. And so this, I recently heard a comment that, oh, Disneyland's paying the same taxes as they were in 1978. Well, that's not true.
On the original land, they are.
They are.
On the original land is a small,
Go ahead, Ernie.
the original land is a small footprint. They own, it's something like 2 to 3 times as much land as they did before. If you look at the original land, it has increased in value, but we don't separate land. We increase the whole value of Disneyland each time. And right now they're owing $70 million in taxes, and you're saying that that's not enough?
Okay, let's have Andrea and Amy respond. Is that okay?
It's important to have a truthful conversation. By your own admission, the land values remain the same. The original land values remain the same. Disneyland is currently taxed at $6 per square foot on their original land value, right? Based on their original sale price. And today, the market value of that land is $100 per square foot. That's an enormous difference. Everything in between is what they're pocketing. That amounts to millions of dollars that they're pocketing while the schools and communities around them crumble. This is information that's available publicly, right? And so let's not play with the numbers. Let's be honest about what this is. We can agree to disagree about the policy, about whether it is meritorious to close a loophole on the biggest landowners of commercial and industrial properties, right? But let's not mess with the numbers. Let's just have the conversation. You either do or you don't support industrial and commercial properties paying their fair share at a time when we need it most. Let's talk about that.
I think we've kind of covered that subject. Haram, would you kind of agree that there are properties that have been around? I think Jeff did a study in our office and looked at the top 10% of assessed value that have been on the roll since 1978. And in San Diego County, they actually found it was a trailer park, assisted living facility, and a brokerage office. But so we didn't find in the top 10% of our roll any country clubs that we could see. Right. But I think it's a good point that people need to consider. So maybe we can move on to the next question. Is that okay, Haram?
Yeah, just the only thing I would say, because it was part of the question that I don't know if necessarily was answered, it's how is it justifiable that these country clubs pay 2 cents per square foot while the houses across the street pay 50 cents? How is that defensible? How is that justifiable? Let's look beyond the numbers. What do you say, Assessor Donenberg?
Well, the golf courses were assessed at 2%, at 2 cents plus a 200% increase if they were started before 1978. San Diego Country Club's been there from the 50s, and they've increased, and in 1978 they were brought up to market value. So that value was a replacement cost for that golf course. So it's in the system as what it costs to build in 1978 plus 200%, because the 200% is the 2% a year compounded for the 40 years that it's been there. And Andrea, I don't want to argue on the numbers, but you realize that there was over a 2% increase in the value of the property, and the initial property was a small print.
$6 accounts for that. $6 accounts for the 2% increase. I think it's important to move away from all of the numbers here and talk about the philosophical question. And, you know, with that,
let's move to our next question with that in mind. And Andrew, I'm gonna let you finish there. Sorry, I'll let you finish.
Yeah, so I know that we had the opportunity to ask 3 questions, and I'd like to ask the 3rd question so we can move.
I think we're on to Jeff here, and then it's back on your side. So Jeff, you have your...
That's fine. That's fine.
Okay. As San Diego County's Chief Deputy Assessor, I can tell you that every day my office receives calls from struggling business owners seeking relief from COVID-19 closures and restrictions. I have shown in these slides that tax increases will be passed on to small business, and it will be the small business that are paying the brunt of this $12 billion in property taxes that you're referring to. This proposition was filed with the state on April 2nd, having full knowledge of these COVID-19 business closures. Why do you feel that now is the time to further burden businesses by passing the largest property tax increase in California's history?
I'm happy to take that, Iram.
Yeah, go ahead.
It is always the right time to invest in the things that we need in order for all of us to get ahead. Right now, these loopholes are protecting the top 10% of property owners and are, you know, depriving our schools and communities of much needed resources. You know, you all have repeatedly said we have enough, it's not the right time, but how can that be true when the pandemic has laid bare the inequalities in our society? We need these resources now more than ever. How can it be true that we have enough when schools, community colleges, health clinics, and fire crews are struggling with limited resources to keep us healthy and whole now? How can it be enough in a pandemic that has laid bare the impact on communities of color? How can it be enough for us to say we shouldn't invest any more resources into the communities and schools to keep us safe, healthy, and whole? Like, the rich are living off their wealth right now. How can you possibly say we have enough? And that's true for small businesses as well. Small businesses are struggling, and Prop 15 is the only measure on the ballot that gives them any relief by eliminating a business personal property tax that is going to help small businesses by exempting them from this particular measure in order to, from the increases in taxes in this particular measure, leveling the playing field to allow them to compete against the big businesses with the fancy attorneys who are able to use accounting tricks to avoid ever having to pay their fair share. This is a question of fairness. This is a question of who should pay right now, and it should be the people who have not been paying for 4 decades. Those are the large commercial industrial property owners.
If I could just respond really briefly, Felipe's is not one of the top 10%. The foot massage place or the beauty salon or the taco shop are not part of the top 10%. Yet they're the ones, through their triple net leases, through their pass-throughs from their landlords, that are going to be paying the brunt of this tax.
Mr. Olson,
sorry, Amy, but that's the truth.
If I could reply to that, since you keep using that example, you know, Phil, you're not being honest, or even you don't have integrity in your answer. Felipe's, to use that example, is owned by one owner. That owner does not own any other property. The Felipe's that is in Little Italy in downtown, there are other Felipe's, but they're owned by other people. You cannot, and you should know this, you cannot aggregate or combine property owners to determine what an increase in value is going to be. That single property is owned by one owner, and that property comes nowhere near the $3 million threshold. It will not be affected. And we could go down the list of all your examples, but I'm not going to do that right now because you're playing with numbers. And honestly, this is not about those numbers. This is about the philosophical question of, should we be having those who have not been paying their fair share do so now when we need it most in order to support families, children, small businesses, and our future.
You know, Andrew, I'm just going to address the fact portion that you said about Philippi's. Please remember that the initiative says if you own two properties, it doesn't have to be of the same business, but any two properties and they aggregate over $3 million at market value.
And if you had done your homework,
it does trigger a reassessment. So I'm putting.
If you had done your homework, you would have looked on your own website with your own public records, and you would have seen that that owner owns one property and is not going to be subject to any more taxes.
There are actually 3 parcel owners in the Philippi's, and they did a breakdown to ensure tax are correct. But that's okay. And we worked with the owner of the Philippi's to ensure that we understood their property ownership. But it's just an example of a small business that would trigger. But my question follow-up is, in protecting small business from the initiative, one of the requirements to be a small business is that they own property. How do renters that don't own property can't qualify under as a small business under the initiative definition? Why was that written that way?
I think you're confusing the matter. The initiative protects all residential property owners and anyone who is renting from residential property owners.
We're not talking to residential.
Hold on, I'm just going to clarify my question because you addressed, it was a small business question, and so it's just a technical question. In the initiative, it says that the small businesses have to have under 50 employees, have to be independently owned and operated, and they have to own land in California, be a property owner. But we're talking about renters was in Jeff's question. Can you address that portion and how the initiative did not protect?
So I think you're confusing language from a prior iteration of the ballot measure.
We just read it yesterday.
When I say that the ballot measure, which can be read by any voter, protects small businesses, that means that it protects any commercial and industrial properties that are valued at $3 million or less. Those are small businesses. In addition to that, it provides tax relief to all businesses up to $500,000 by eliminating the business personal
$5,000.
$500,000 by eliminating
$5,000.
Hold on. Please let Andrea speak. I appreciate that. Sorry, Andrea.
So you don't have to do any fancy math. All you have to do is know that whether your property is valued at $3 million or more in order to determine whether you will be subject to any increased taxes. We know from the University of Southern California that 90% of the properties in California are valued at less. We also know.
Okay, I think this is differing from our question, but if you want to turn that into a question, I think that would be fair. I just want to make sure we're getting to the audience questions with 15 minutes remaining.
Yeah, we have 15 more minutes, and we have perhaps 9 minutes of audience questions, and then 1 minute for closing for you guys, and then 5 minutes for us.
I'm done. I think we should move to the audience questions.
Okay, so audience questions. Is it okay if we just jump in?
Yeah.
I see one. Wouldn't big property owners just create multiple ownership entities? And so to be fair to the initiative, I'm just going to help that along. We actually look through entity ownership and we'll allocate percentage of ownership. And if it goes above the $3 million together, that would trigger reassessment. So that you can't just create multiple entity ownerships to avoid this. That wouldn't be a loophole. One of the other questions we got is the Farm Bureau lying? Is this really going to impact farms? Ernie, you're a farmer. Do you want to answer that?
It will, certainly. And I will be personally impacted for my outbuildings. And the Farm Bureau statewide has taken this on. And they have, I believe, experts at reading the tax laws as they apply to farms.
Okay, so it's because in the initiative, it only said land, not
Correct.
barns and other items. Haram, it's on you to pick the next questions.
Yeah.
I don't want to let that go unchecked because the initiative refers to agricultural properties, and all agricultural properties are exempt. So I invite voters to read the language for themselves. This was another subject of contention between the opponents and the proponents, and the language is clear. It's self-evident. All agricultural properties, including improvements on the land, are exempt.
Thank you, Andrea. So for the next question, just kind of looking behind, Mr. Donenberg, this is not a presidential debate, please.
I'm sorry.
Let us finish asking our question, please.
Good comeback.
No, so one question is, what are some of the most egregious examples of large corporations in San Diego paying 1978 assessed taxes? Who would like to take that one?
I can certainly take it just real briefly, and then anyone else who wants to jump in. There is no one that is paying 1978 taxes. No one. Because Proposition 13 has a built-in 2% compounded inflation adjustment that happens on 85% of properties here in San Diego County. And so it's a fallacy to say that, oh, they're still paying on 1978 taxes. Like we used the example of Disneyland earlier, whose taxes just in the last 20 years have gone from 23 million a year to 69 million a year. Yet the land hasn't changed ownership. So,
and the land and the base value that land is taxed on remains the same. That is true in San Diego as well. The 5 country clubs that Amy referred to, every single one of them is based on the taxation is based on the original land sale of the property. You know, they are still subject to the 2% increase per year. But even with that, they're only paying 2 cents per square foot, while the property owners, the homeowners in the neighborhood are paying as much as 50 times as much. If homeowners can pay their fair share, if small businesses can pay their fair share, large corporations and country clubs should also be able to pay their fair share. That's
so one of the comments that Alliance has put in the box is SeaWorld and Westfield. I'm just going to walk through from explained commercial property taxes. So for SeaWorld, and they didn't come up in our searches in the top 10% of values, but being from 1978, but they could be, and we like to deal with facts, and so we could research that. But every time that they make a change at SeaWorld and they add improvements, their taxes go up, and it's called reassessment at that point. And so even if the portion of their land, or they bought more land, they're building a hotel, that hotel value comes on at today's rate and then gets the 2%. We just saw a huge changeover with the Shamu as they got changing because of that CNN video. That's how one of the other questions, how does commercial property works? It's the same. If you buy property, it locks in at 2%, and then as you make changes, additions, it gets reassessed and changed and blended to that market rate. So that's kind of what we're talking about here. I hope I dumbed it down for everybody to understand somewhat of a complex idea. Haram, do you have another question?
Yeah. I mean, we don't need to dumb anything down. I'm sorry.
If I may.
Made it palatable.
Yes. the details of those examples. So first, voters aren't dumb, voters are smart, and that's why they're here, to listen to honest information. Second, SeaWorld is a great example because it's owned by shareholders. It's a publicly traded corporation on the stock market, and it is owned by shareholders, and as such, as the shareholders turn over and change, they will never constitute more than 50% of ownership that would trigger any kind of reassessment on the original base value of the land, right? And so they're an excellent example of why we are losing money, because they will forevermore be traded on the stock market. They will never transfer ownership the way homeowners do, and they will always be taxed on the same sale value of the original land. And Westfield is the same. And in Westfield, if I could just finish, the Westfield malls, which there are four of them here in San Diego County and over a dozen in California, they are owned by the largest commercial real estate company in the world. In the world. Do you think that multi-billion-dollar company cares about our schools and communities?
But Andrea, I just think you're stating factually.
Let her finish. Sorry, what was the last thing you said, Andrea?
That the Westfield malls are owned by the largest commercial real estate company in the world. In the world. They can afford to pay their fair share of taxes.
So I'm just going to mention two things. Westfield, when I started at the office, had one of the largest property tax reassessments. Jeff, do you remember that? Or Ernie, from 2017? And that major overhaul that they're doing at UTC is tremendously increasing their property taxes. So in those two examples, we've seen that reassessment of the Westfield properties, and we're going to see it when they close down their properties in El Cajon. I think they just lost. Was it the El Cajon Mall? Is a Westfield property, Jeff?
No.
Oh, okay. I apologize. But there has been, and I can go and pull from our tax roll, where Westfield was one of our largest reassessments in the last 2 years. Just to get back to
reassessing the land. You're not reassessing the value of the land. And so I think you need to be honest with the voters. Again, we can have a philosophical debate about whether it's fair or not.
I think it was a purchase acquisition that they made at the UTC Mall. Is that right, Haram? Did they recently purchase the mall there?
I think Andrea would know more about that.
Yeah, so this is an excellent example. Westfield land wasn't bought and sold. The company Westfield was bought and sold. This is one of the accounting tricks that corporations use. So this multi-billion-dollar multinational real estate company, they bought Westfield in order to avoid triggering a reassessment of the base value of the land. You know, these are the
I do have a question about that, Andrea. In
our communities, Senator
Pat Bates has actually, because it's a legislative interpretation that could adjust on some of that, she's tried passing legislation that would address that. It's been supported by Howard Jarvis, Taxpayers Association, and I think maybe have reached opposition from the proponents of Prop 15. How do you address the fact that the legislature tried to address that and has been unable to do that without eliminating the whole system that helps homeowners and small business owners?
There is no legislative fix to this. According to our own Constitution here in California, an amendment to the Constitution, which was Prop 13 in 1978, can only be further amended with another constitutional initiative. And that's why Prop 15 is going on the ballot, because there is no other fix to this loophole. The core problem here is the loophole. If we're going to be fixing it, if we're serious about addressing this problem, that there's only one path, and that's Prop 15 through the voters.
I'm just going to disagree with you.
Wait. I have to pause for a second, because we have 5 minutes, and guess what's going to happen after 5 minutes?
I
just got our feed, and you guys have 1 minute to close per what we agreed earlier. You guys have 1 minute to close per agreed earlier, and we have 5 minutes, so you're already actually eating into our time. So you guys go for your closing argument for 1 minute, and then we'll go for hours for 4. Go.
Great, Ernie, it's up to you.
Okay, first. You know, this idea has a lot of merit, but with every idea, there are fallacies and there are problems. And I think that's what the assessors, we didn't come out to say that the Prop 13 was perfect. What we said was, you've got some real problems in this, and we're not going to be able to come up with values. And that's why we spent 2 years trying to help you. I know the people that are the drafters of your initiative. And
yeah, I'm one of them. I don't know you.
Okay. I know some of them, I said, and some of them stop the bill. There was a bill to stop the ability for change of ownership, and it isn't constitutional. The broad definitions are constitutional. The statutory, and you can ask Lenny Goldberg. He's the guy that brought this forward, and he killed it because he wanted it because of this. Now, and I really appreciate you wanting to talk about facts. Jordan?
Got 5 seconds. Time's up.
I just want to remind you that SeaWorld is on City of San Diego property. It's not
Ernie.
owned by SeaWorld.
And
It's your
then it
close.
is up.
Thank you.
It's your
Thank you
closing
for that.
time.
All right, let's move to our side, I suppose. Let's do our closing argument. Why should voters in San Diego and across California pass Prop 15, and why is it good for San Diego?
I go ahead. Keisha, are you getting ready to speak?
Yes, I can. Bottom line, we should not be afraid to fund the teachers, the nurses, the firefighters we all need to survive and thrive in this pandemic. We should not be afraid to invest in the schools, hospitals, roads, all the infrastructure that helps everyone move forward and enjoy a quality of life. The opposition does not care about homeowners. The millions of dollars we are seeing being spent on ads and false narratives is all about big corporations wanting to continue to take advantage of us. They only care about their own pocketbooks. They do not care about the communities. This is the time. If not now, when? We hear all the time folks saying, well, this isn't the time. This is the time. When we're in a boom economy, they say, no, we don't want to do it now because we don't want to interrupt this boom. Now we are all struggling. This is the time to prioritize our schools, our communities, our children. The time is now for us to support this.
Based on that, thank you, Keisha. And based on that, Amy, you're a parent. You want to?
Yeah, so I find it curious that when COVID hit, it took our district 3 weeks to go online. And why was that? That is because kids did not have Chromebooks. They didn't have access to internet. So if we don't invest in our schools, we're going to have a workforce that is uneducated, and we cannot afford that. Our communities thrive when we have educated innovators. So we need to invest, not protect the big businesses.
Andrea, you want to say something else? You have 1 minute before we could, actually a little bit less than a minute. Go.
Prop 15 is a historic, equitable, and long-term solution. As we said earlier, it will usher in a new era of investment that invests in the things that matter most to us, our children, our families, and our future. This corporate loophole has been devastating. Prop 15 is our opportunity to close it once and for all.
How much?
And invest in the public institutions that help us all get ahead, that help us all survive, that help us all thrive. Please vote for Prop 15.
Thank you. Jordan, you want to say anything, Mr. Dornenberg?
I just want to say thank you to Haram and Ace and all of our panelists for their time today. I think this is Andrew said it's philosophical, and you got to make decisions with facts on the philosophy of what you want to see happen in our community. And so I will say, I think as Ernie and Andrea did agree, we do need to take care of our schools. And I think this is a question of how do we get there? Is it the timing to do this funding, or is it the wrong idea at the wrong time? I encourage everybody to reach out to the panelists and seek more information and a good open discussion. And thanks to PolitiFest and my partner Haram, I'm bringing that conversation here today and looking at the ideas and facts being presented on Proposition 15.
Thank you all. Ciao.
Thanks everybody. Will Huntsberry again here with Voice of San Diego. I'm sure everyone in the community really appreciated that spirited discussion, and that is what we're all about, making sure these ideas get the proper airing and people have the time to defend them. So thank you all for being here. If you don't follow Voice of San Diego's journalism, you really should, because it gives you information like this in quick, exciting, easy to read format every day. So you can sign up for our newsletters at voiceofsandiego.org/newsletters. Again, thank you all community participants for putting this forum together. You know, our community conversations are things that the community reach out to us and say, we want to have a forum about this. These groups did that, and we really appreciate it. So yeah, everyone have a great weekend.
Will, we might need a story from Voice of San Diego.